Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, Treasury Talent community. This is Joe Grabowski with Treasury Talent, joined as always by Simon Lynch. Simon, how are you doing today?
Very well, thanks, Joe.
Great.
From
Scotty?
holidays and batteries are recharged and ready to go.
There you go. We're happy to have you back. Scotty, I'm a resident mountain man. We're in Plaid today. How you doing?
No complaints on my end today, Joe.
Awesome. Happy to hear it. And it's business as always here in Michigan. We don't need to get into that. We're all very fortunate to be joined by Garima Thakur from Ingram Micro today. Garima, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone.
No, of course. Thanks for joining us. Where are you located? Where are you sitting right now?
I have the pleasure of being in Southern California in a city called San Juan Capistrano.
Oh, very nice.
Great weather, can't complain.
Perfect, perfect. So, well, again, thanks for joining us in Treasury Talent community. Just a quick reminder, this is interactive. If you have any questions, thoughts, anything while we're talking to Garima, of course, we're going to pepper her with questions, but if you think of anything on your own, please, by all means, feel free to chime in. We're more than happy to accommodate and get you the answers that you're looking for. So with that, Scotty, I'll let you kick it off.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And Garima, thanks again. We're super excited about the topic today, and we'll get to your thoughts around diversity and treasury here in a minute. But before we do, just a couple of questions that our guests will be used to us asking. You made an interesting move from a career in corporate training into treasury and really never looked back. What would you say have been some of the highlights?
That's a good question, Scotty. I had decided when I was working in corporate training back in 2007 to pursue my MBA with Thunderbird School of Global Management in Arizona. And it just so, I have an engineering background. I did my electronics and telecommunications engineering in India, in Pune. And with that background in engineering and analytics, kind of finance came naturally to me. And so I decided to pursue a global finance MBA. And I was offered during my MBA an internship with Western Union, which was a rotational global treasury internship. In fact, the very first they had ever done. And so I got to get a flavor for, I'll be honest with you, at the time I was clueless on what treasury is and what treasury does. This was 2007, so a long time ago, or 2008 rather, but that internship really was my first exposure to corporate treasury. I got to do a rotational program in cash management, compliance, capital markets, and foreign exchange. And really that's what got me started and got me hooked to treasury. And here I am, 2020. Many years later, still enjoying my treasury journey as the assistant treasurer of Ingram Micro. To answer your question on highlights, look, it's been a very rewarding, exciting journey so far. The great thing that I've appreciated about the experiences I've had in treasury is, one, the different industries I got to experience treasury function in. So one can say, well, treasury is treasury. What's different? You all know very well, and I'm sure our listeners can appreciate that there are nuances to treasury, and each company structures their treasury differently. Some will include risk management, some will not. Some will include M&A, some will not, and the list goes on. So each company, whether it's private, public, treasury can be different. So I've been lucky. And a highlight of my career journey has been getting exposure to internet services, financial services, broker-dealer, sporting goods, golf, and now most recently technology, IT distribution. And within that, getting exposure to so many different facets of treasury, which is what has kept me so excited and engaged in this area, ranging from capital markets, cash, ops, M&A, insurance, the list goes on. So that's been kind of the highlight. And what I will say, of course, is a key highlight is a shout out to all my mentors I've had through the years that have made this journey possible for me, the relationships I've made along the way, including all of you here speaking to me, And, the teams I've had the opportunity to hire, when I see folks have hired, go places, get promoted, do great things, that gives me a lot of joy. I think those, I would say, are some of my key highlights. Maybe one other thing I can mention is continued education. It's something that I believe in. I still do. I'm always learning new things, and did my CTP, did my couple levels of CFA, and keep learning.
Garima, that's a fabulous background across a number of different industries there. What's the one piece of advice that you would give to listeners that you wish you had have known when you started your career?
So many things come to mind. I'm learning every day. I will say, a few things. It's okay to make mistakes, right? Fail fast, as they say. Don't aim for perfection. One thing I more recently learned, and I can't take credit for this, it was through a Mike Gervais workshop I did on developing your own personal philosophy, which I did maybe a little bit later. I'm glad I did it. And I wished, well, it would have been good if I had worked on this earlier. And one can say, well, what's the big deal with that? I know what it is, but try it. Grab a piece of paper and a pen, sit down and see how easy it is to succinctly list down what is, if you can, good for you. I can do it. You have to it's a journey. You have to put some thought into it and think about what is my personal philosophy. And there's actually a great article Mike wrote about this too. You can find that on my LinkedIn page. It was for the Harvard Business Review. But he talks in there about fear of other people's opinion. And that's, I think, one advice I would give to the listeners is don't fall for that. Don't fall for the fear of other people's opinion, and don't let it hold you back in your career journey. Develop your personal philosophy, commit to it, revisit it. It's not a one and done exercise. And then I would also say create a short, I would emphasize the word short, list of people that you think whose opinion matters, right? And check in with those people. We've all been in companies, new roles, new companies, or have new people join these organizations where it's human nature. People can be too quick to judge you. And again, don't let that get to you. Stick to your personal philosophy, stick to that short list of people, keep going to them when you really want true opinions, and don't let that fear of other people kind of hold you back. I will say also what I've learned in my journey that has, maybe I should have done this sooner, is when new opportunities and change comes your way, again, human nature, one generally says, well, I don't know. I don't know if I want change. Be open to it. And this has helped me along the way, just being open to change, getting out of your comfort zone. It'll pay off, I promise you. And guess what? If it doesn't, you can easily just, slide back into your comfort zone, go back to doing what it is that you were doing, but try it, because otherwise there's absolutely no way to know. And last but not the least, I will say, particularly when we're early on in our career journeys, work tends to be more important than personal life, health. It's a race, we're just going. Work hard, I'm not saying don't, but try to balance it out. There is more to life, as we all know, family, health. So be a whole person. And it takes sometimes a while for you to kind of get to that point of, you don't want to be burnt out. You want to enjoy what you do. So that's probably another piece of advice, Simon, I would share is focus on total well-being and try to enjoy what you do.
If one area of your life's out of whack, it usually impacts the other areas of your life, right? So No, that makes sense. And you had mentioned it just about having the short list of people's opinions who matter. It's that much more challenging, especially if you're joining a new company in this environment where chances are it's going to be remote. You have limited interaction with your teammates, and usually it's over technology. Like sometimes you just have to throw caution to the wind and just try to develop those relationships the best you can, figure out whose opinion is most important, and just make sure that you're developing and nurturing those relationships.
You're spot on, Joe. Make a really good point around the environment we're in right now, work from home environment and pandemic and COVID. Particularly if you're somebody new joining a company, you don't have that 10 years, 5 years, whatever it may be, of relationships to rely on in this work from home environment, right? You're forming these new relationships virtually on Zoom and Teams and other ways of communication. It's that much more important to then, as you said, maintain your short list and kind of stick to your personal philosophy.
Yeah, definitely. And you had mentioned just throughout the course of your career, the relationships and the mentors and that type of relationship that you had developed throughout the course of your career. What's been your approach to networking throughout your career, and what advice would you give to the audience who's listening?
Sure. He knows my philosophy on networking because him and I have spoken about this before. You hear me say this, network always.
Yep. Nourish
Those relationships. It is not something I would recommend doing right at the 11th hour when you need your network.
Yeah.
You need to make sure that that's what your network is there for, to tap it, right? When you need something, whether it's knowledge or a contact or a reference or whatever the case may be. But you want to work on it over a period of time so it's readily available to you to use it. So that's one piece of advice I would give. Be authentic in building these relationships. It's a two-way street, and you always want to think about, what am I bringing to the table, right? Yeah. So if you are going to reach out to a mentor or anybody that you want them to be your mentor, sponsor, whatever the case may be, you want to think about, what am I bringing to the table for them? It could be knowledge, it could be your perspective. It could also be that they now feel good because they were able to help you with something. You're also bringing that to the table. So think about what can I do for them, and make it a good two-way relationship. Be authentic about it. And lastly, I will say, a lot of times, people can take the approach of, well, they're so senior, they're so busy, they're not going to talk to me. Guess what? If we all see the same thing, nobody will reach out to anyone. And a lot of times, I can't tell you how many times I've reached out to a senior leader or somebody with a really busy schedule, forget their kind of hierarchy, and they have been so energized by the outreach that now they have an opportunity to share their thoughts on something, their experience, learn from me, what can I share with them, because maybe they're not hearing about things at different levels in the organization. So to be professional about it, but don't hesitate.
Yeah.
Garima, one of the things that I hear a lot in the Treasury market is diversity and hiring and the way that we hire diversity into the business. What would you say are the greatest benefits around the diversity side of things when you're hiring?
That's a great question, and Simon, an area that I'm very passionate about is diversity and inclusion. So there are so many great benefits, but I think that the biggest one is, just as the word diversity suggests, diverse perspectives, thoughts, ideas, right? I don't want to hire a team or have a team that essentially just reiterates what I already know. That doesn't do me any good. You want to have challenging ideas, innovation, new thoughts. You want to be able to learn from each other, both professionally and personally, and that's what kind of diversity brings. If you think about it and you kind of analyze everything I just said in terms of the benefits of diversity, overall what that does for an organization or a team or company is it actually reduces your risk, if you think about it. Because now I have more perspectives, more ideas, better innovation, maybe better risk mitigation because I have not just one line of thinking, but multiple. And that's what a diverse team will bring to the table.
Yeah, and knowing, the conversation that we're having here, obviously you work at Ingram Micro, we're talking about diversity. These are your thoughts, these are your points of view, not necessarily shared by Ingram Micro, right? But in your opinion, how does one go about hiring or looking into diversity in one's team and adding to diversity in one's team?
That's a good question. I would say, look within your organization, work with your HR team, be aware, figure out if there is a problem, where is it? And how do you go about solving it? Now, is there a problem is the question. Don't start talking about it if you don't have a diversity issue because you'll call more attention to it when it's not needed. So awareness is key, right? Is there a problem? When you're going through the hiring process, awareness also of unconscious biases. We all have them, right? There's nothing bad about it. We all have them, but I think the important thing is to be aware. It's not intentional at any times. And there are several online assessment tools you can download and questionnaires you can take that help you become more aware of your own unconscious biases. So I would just say, be more aware. That's another thing you can do.
Yeah.
One other thing you could do that I know a lot of teams and companies do today even is you could consider clearing out names or altering names on resumes. So really the focus is on credentials and not so much backgrounds or who this person is. Studies have shown that type of whitening, if you will, of names, altering of names, has resulted in higher callbacks to diversity candidates.
Yeah.
It does work, so give that a shot. It's also another tool at your disposal. And then I will say, this is not a check the box exercise, right? If you treat it that way, you may as well not do it. It does require investment. It does require overall buy-in from your organization to make sure that you're investing time, resources, and last but not the least, as you go through this process of hiring and finding your right candidate for your team, exercise empathy. It's important, and that will really help you get a good outcome.
For sure.
Garima, if I'm sitting in the treasurer's seat right now, what do you think are the first steps that I need to take in order to attract and retain these diverse candidates?
That's a great question. I think, it's not just the treasurer, right? It's any leader. Any leader of an organization today needs to be thinking about this real hard. I will reiterate what I just said to Joe, which is exercise empathy, right? If you want to retain good candidates, diverse candidates on your team, and attract new candidates as well, you want to be somebody who can exercise empathy. Particularly in today's day and age and the environment we're in, what may help is holding some regular focus groups so you're in touch with your team and what they're thinking, having an ability to listen, because if you're not doing that, you really don't know if there is a problem, what the problem is, and then having an ability to solve it. And really creating these safe speaking / safe listening environments where your team can feel comfortable. It could be through surveys, it could be through educational sessions, it could be through focus groups. If you think about the environment we're in today, which is work from home for most of us, right? And who knows for how long that continues. Diversity and inclusion is that much more important. Inclusion particularly, because we're all isolated, sitting at home. Some of us have joined new companies. We haven't met a lot of I made my first virtual hire in March this year, a fantastic senior analyst on my team that her and I have never met. How does she feel included in the team, right, is the question. All I'm trying to say is that much more important. But Simon, some of the other things that come to mind for leaders when they think of attracting and retaining talent is invest in training and development, right? That is something that your team will appreciate. keep revisiting these things. It's not a one and done effort. You really got to commit to it, invest the time and the energy and the resources, and do what it takes to make this a philosophy, not just a we check the box type of exercise, and really, treat your people fairly and equitably.
Yeah. Garima, one thing I'm a big believer in is I've talked for many years now about flexibility is a really good one, particularly around the gender diversity area. There's a lot of, there's a time in a female's career where they obviously go off and have children, and being able to give them flexibility during that time, and particularly when they want to return, has been something I'm quite passionate about, because I think we can actually increase the participation rate of females during that time by giving flexibility. So to me, this COVID situation has been brilliant, because it's really shown that working from home works, flexibility works. I'm intrigued by your thoughts on how you think that will play out moving forward.
No, that's a great point, Simon. This environment of work from home is really a game changer, right? In terms of those personal situations happening for women, as you said, as they go have a baby, or it could be really, other situations too that could be applicable to men and women, to everyone, which previously would have prevented them from maybe being able to show up to an office or be there for X number of hours, which at times can be perception of productivity, but may not really be meaningful in representation, if you will, of are we being productive. But if you can get your job done from home effectively, then your ability to have those life-changing events occur, but at the same time be able to participate and engage in your career in the same way is really going to be a game changer. So it'll be interesting to see. We have companies, I believe, I know Microsoft announced this last week, but I believe so did Facebook. You have got a couple of big companies at least making these bold moves to say people are going to work from home now indefinitely, provided their managers approve it. Think about what that does, Simon. Now, forget life-changing events, but think about what that does overall to the talent pool, the mobility of that talent pool. The commutes are gone. So it really, if it continues, this trend of work from home, or at least an element of work from home, maybe it's not full time, it truly will be a game changer from a diversity standpoint, but overall kind of reshuffling the talent pool across the board.
Yeah, and along those lines, we have a question from Aziz in the Treasury Talent community. Aziz, thanks for your question. He says, Garima, do you think work from home's here to stay for Treasury? I know the two companies that you had just mentioned, obviously in the tech sector, they seem to set the tone with work environments and everything that goes into that. But in your personal opinion, how has it impacted has it impacted your views on working from home, and do you think it's sustainable after all this is behind us at whatever point that may be?
That's a great question. I think it is. It's sustainable. Treasury is one of those areas that you can see the productivity real time. If what you expect out of the group is not happening, you will know right away. Wires will not get done. Reports will not go out, accounts will be overdrawn, talking more from an ops standpoint and the strategic side of Treasury too, or capital market transactions will not close. Where I'm going with this is the outcome and the productivity, as I said, is very real time. And so when it comes to my own team right now and my ability to manage and have oversight on what's happening, it's relatively easy. And for that reason, I think Treasury is one of those areas that can sustainably continue to work from home. What you need to overlay on that is company philosophy, right? And infrastructure around work from home, and do you have the right work from home setup? And there's a lot that goes into it. So when I can say it can be sustainable, I also appreciate there's personal and company level elements to that will change the decision, and the situation can be different. But you know what, even if it's not 100% work from home, nobody has a crystal ball, but I do think that there will continue to be a heavier element of work from home for Treasury and other areas, even after we get past this pandemic.
Absolutely. We've had a lot of conversations around that because recruiting very much like Treasury is relationship based, and that Simon has converted me from, I was one of those millennials who's, oh, you can do everything behind technology. You don't need to meet people face to face. Simon, you're old and outdated. I don't know what's going on, but I've come around to it. You develop more effective relationships in person, both from a service provider perspective, but also from a team perspective, which goes along with having that diverse team and being able to retain that team as the relationships that come along with that. So, to your point, I think we may see more of a hybrid model, and I think we've discussed that on this before too, but the relationship, we can't downplay the relationship piece at the same time.
No, you're spot on. That's exactly why I say it will be hybrid, because managing a team remotely 100% versus being able to go have FaceTime. Managing banking relationships remotely is challenging. There's a huge value in that. I would agree with Simon, and I would agree with you as well, that we will need to balance out the technology with the in-person, right? We need both. I don't think we can completely have one and not the other. Yeah. And we all miss that, right? We miss our interactions with our banking partners. We miss our interactions with our teams, our vendors. And so, I'm looking forward to having that social element back. But like you said, it will likely be at some level of a hybrid model.
We've also talked about that, Garima, on this in these meetings in the past, in terms of just competitiveness when it comes to attracting and retaining the top, diverse talent. You can get a little creative moving forward if it's not the norm to offer a hybrid model. Generally speaking, what we're finding is top talent really appreciates that, and so it's a way to all the technology is in place now. It's not a ton of upfront cost, but there's a ton of ROI on making that available to people in order to attract them to your organization.
You're right, Scotty, absolutely. Because I'll speak for myself. This is the first time in March of this year that I've ever worked from home, outside of maybe working late at night or doing emails or what have you, right? Full-time working. I've never experienced it before. I was quite nervous when it started, and I wasn't sure how well I would do in it. And now, 8 months into it, I love it. I love the flexibility. It's effective. Now, obviously, there's that element of relationship that we just talked about that we all miss. But you're spot on in terms of our ability to hire good talent is going to be, any company's ability to hire good talent is going to be largely dependent on how much flexibility you can offer to that talent and for what they need, right? Maybe some people, I know some folks who can't wait to go back to the office because they just don't like this, right? They like the separation, but you should be more optional in your choice rather than, well, this is what everybody has to do, because that's what we're getting used to now. And we're finding this whole other side of work from home, which is quite different, right? Which is something we've not experienced before. And now we're finding all this time and flexibility in getting things done, but you can't underplay the importance of that brainstorming session in a conference room, or the that ability to interact with people and how it leads to innovation, ideation. That is equally as important. So that's why I do think when we say it's sustainable, if it has to be, it can be, but is that the right way to do it? Probably not. You probably do want some kind of hybrid element to it.
Yeah. It's helpful. I know that we talk about it as a business too. We have someone in Australia on the other end of the world. We have another person in Utah. We have another person in Michigan. You're lining up calendars between calls. It's not just like a quick peek around a cubicle saying, "Hey, what do you think about this?" There's a lot of coordination. It can be kind of clunky at times for exactly that reason.
Absolutely. I've had my share of 3 a.m. conference calls in the last few months, which could have been instead us traveling to Europe for some important projects and implementations that we just did. We just went live with a new treasury management system, and our plan was to be on the ground live in Europe with the team. But instead, we were doing all this virtually. I mean, we got it done. We got a great outcome, but it's cumbersome, as you said, Joe.
Garima, I sort of like, I look at this as well, like, again, from our business perspective, and I've obviously not been able to travel in the way that I would normally do. And I think as long as you've met people, it's actually more efficient and more cost effective in doing that. So using your example, to not have to travel to Europe, as much as that would be nice to do, it's a really hard thing to do. It's a very expensive and it's a very unproductive thing to do. So I think that there's really positives that come out of it as well.
Absolutely. I mean, you're going to have companies. You're right, Simon. As long as you've met people, you've established that relationship. And this is a great opportunity, particularly for folks in treasury and finance. And a lot of companies are doing this to relook at budgets around, OPEX and T&E and real estate, right? Do we need that much real estate? I know I've spoken to a couple of CFOs recently that have shared with me that they are actively relooking their real estate strategy or revisiting it. So there can be some significant, maybe it's a reallocation, maybe it's not necessarily just a savings, but one way or the other, there will be a shift in the way companies are thinking about travel and expenses, as well as real estate.
Absolutely. And we do have another comment from the Treasury Talent community, a little bit of a pivot from where we just were, but Heath, thanks for your comment. He mentions diversity is important. It's also important not to overlook people with disabilities, but at the same time, that's part of the diversity. I wouldn't put, I just kind of look at disabilities as part of that diversity too. Like, it shouldn't impact your decision on whether or not you hire someone. Obviously there are laws against that, but at the same time, it goes into reasonable accommodation and making sure that you're being inclusive on the back end once you actually do hire somebody too.
Absolutely.
With that, I mean, we're the community has spoken. I think we've covered all the questions and all the comments. Garima, I think we've put you on the hot seat long enough. So thanks a lot for dealing with us and answering our questions and being a good sport about this. And with that, we'll cut you loose.
Happy to do it. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
No, again, certainly the pleasure is all ours. And Scotty, Simon, as always, it's been a good one. And Treasury Talent community, thanks again for joining and tuning in, asking questions, making comments. We will see you again next week. See you later.
Bye, everyone.